Welcome to the HabitStack podcast, where we talk to fellow founders who are in the thick of things as they execute their plans to grow their business. Because stories about past successes are interesting, but hearing from people who are in the middle of the battle right now, that's invaluable. I'm Scott Ward, founder of HabitStack. I'm here today with Brett Farmiloe, founder of featured.com. Brett, thanks for joining the show today.
Scott, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So featured.com, I've read a little bit about what you're up to, but the audience maybe hasn't. And so why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're up to?
Sure. It's a platform that creates exposure for experts, gives content for publishers, and creates this win-win scenario. So it essentially is a platform where journalists and publishers will ask a question, we'll invite vetted experts to answer that question, and then the best insights get featured in articles.
Okay. So that you have a double-sided thing going on where you basically have a bunch of experts. What's an example? Like what's the biggest category of expert you got on there?
We're big in legal and the finance categories.
Okay. So legal and finance. So some kind of question in those areas or others, I'm assuming. And there's journalists who say, man, I want to write something and I need a quote from somebody, or I need some insight about this thing that's going on. And so they post a question. 5 financial people are like, here's what I would say to that. And then you pick one and they get featured. Oh, featured. Oh, there we go. Work.
Yep. Yeah. So we operate featured.com, and we also own and operate Help a Reporter Out, or Haro. And Haro is kind of the OG in the space that had reporters basically make a request, and then 3 times a day there's an email newsletter that goes out to sources, and then they can reply directly to the journalist. So with the 2 platforms in tandem, it's the best way to get free earned media.
Free earned media. Yeah. So I saw that you had bought Haro. And so, forgive me for not being able to like kind of hold this all in my head at once right away, and maybe some people listening aren't either. So the big difference between those 2 are.
Yeah. Haro's in an email newsletter, and Featured is in a platform. So,
Okay, so but the mechanism, or not the mechanism, but the value proposition is exactly the same, actually. It's just the channel.
yep, pretty much. And I would say that Featured is a little more friendly for PR folks, or, do-it-yourself small business owners that are looking to earn media, mainly because it's just easier to navigate in a platform. If you've got a 3 times a day email newsletter that's going out, some of those queries might not be relevant. Featured essentially helps cut through that noise and gets you connected with the right media opportunity. And then for journalists, Haro is like the best place to possibly source insights, because all you do is just quickly put in your request, and then all of our behind the scenes mechanisms essentially get you connected with the right source.
Wait, so does the newsletter go out to everybody on the list, or is it okay? So
It goes
so
out
if I
to
want to get earned
everyone on
media,
the
I'm
list.
like opening emails 3 times a day with Haro, like 3 times a day to see if there's any topics that I can speak to. Is that right?
That's right. Or you could just sign up for feature.com. You could set your alerts and just be notified when there's a relevant media opportunity.
Yeah, cool. So is this still, I mean, I remember hearing about Haro, and maybe I'm unique, but I think maybe not. There's some people who are like, yeah, that sounds interesting, but um it sounds like maybe it's a long shot. I don't know if it would work. Is it kind of a high, I mean, how much of an expert you got to be, Brett? Is
Yeah.
it kind of for like, well, yeah, sure, if you're a PhD from Harvard, whatever, or is it more broad than that?
I think that it goes back to the HARO acronym. What I always say is be helpful, be authentic, be relevant, and be on time. The on time piece is pretty critical because journalists are operating on deadlines. So oftentimes it's the first most qualified source that is going to be helpful to me is going to get featured in the story. So you'll see a lot of that. And then in terms of relevance, it's just making sure that you've got the right credentials, job title, the actual expertise to comment on a story. And then authentic is you're not using AI, you're 100%, you might be using AI to get something, surfaced or identified, but ultimately you're providing your own expertise and insights, and it's a baseline above, what AI could generate. So if you have all those different things, I think that you've got a pretty fair shot.
That's an interesting point, that the timelines, it's not like a journalist actually has the luxury of finding the very best, most relevant, most credentialed person, it's all of those things by 5 o'clock. Like it's tight.
And it's gotten even worse for journalists. When I'm speaking with journalists and I'm asking them about their, the number of income streams that they have, it's two hands now. They're holding up eight fingers. They're writing for 5 different publications. They've got a Substack that they're managing. They've got a
Oh man.
hourly consultation that they're doing, and then some sort of other side hustle. It's really tough to be a journalist right now. So Help a Reporter Out is in a situation where, we're trying to make their lives a lot easier through connecting with them with sources for stories.
So how'd that come about? I kind of lost track of Haro. Was it struggling or something and you bought it, or what was going on?
Harrow started in 2008, acquired in 2010. It was rebranded in April of 24, so operated for 14 years, and then was rebranded to Connectively, which is a platform, and that lasted about 6 months before it was discontinued. So we swooped in and said, hey, I think that there's actually a lot of value still to be realized in Help a Reporter Out. It's a solid brand. Would you be interested in selling it to us? So we put a deal across the finish line and then acquired it and revived it in April of 25 of this year.
Nice. So, but what do you think happened? Like, why did they not? Why did just because So it's very okay. Sorry, I have a bunch of questions.
Yeah.
They wanted to go platform, didn't work. I'm curious why. You featured is a platform. It is working. I'm curious why. Like,
Yeah. I think it's a difference of economics in terms of company size. The former owner, multi-billion-dollar company, and Harrow, quite frankly, was not driving a lot of dollars to command the internal resources necessary to make it thrive. And you have that combination with the emergence of AI and the necessity to really put some internal resources to maintain quality and trust between that connection. And that's where we could kind of step in and be serviceable in that regard.
got it. So it was a situation where it was just like super strategic for you, just a hand in glove kind of thing.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, it increases the number of media opportunities that are on Featured every day. It's a natural integration with Featured because the weakness of Harrow is it's a 3 times a day email newsletter. So a journalist could come put in their request and have to wait 3 hours before the next Harrow goes out. And so by cross-posting that Harrow query over to feature.com, those journalists can immediately start getting connected with the right sources.
Right. Right. And I'm guessing it kind of helped you with the two-sided marketplace situation. You got an influx of people on both sides.
Totally. Yeah. It's the hard side of the marketplace is to go find journalists that need experts for stories. And the demand is much greater to be featured in the media. So how do you flip the switch and get a bunch of opportunities that are relevant from high authority publications? And Harrow turned out to be the answer for us.
Hmm. Do you see startups using featured in Hero pretty successfully, like the founder? Or yeah, like how does that is that startups are always looking for scrappy ways to grow and get
Yeah.
exposure. Is it something that's working for them, or is it more who should use these tools?
I would say that founder is our most popular job title on
Okay,
Featured.
yeah,
So there's something to that in terms of finding success. And there's also something to that in terms of pivoting and taking a different approach. I think that founders could definitely set up shop on Featured, and we've got, different features on the platform that allow you to quickly identify media opportunities because time is of the essence, especially for founders. So we've made it really streamlined to identify and then also draft a suggested response that you could edit and put over the finish line. So founders are very appreciative of that. What I think is happening, as we approach the end of 2025 and going into 26 is everyone's an expert in something. And smart founders are going to platforms like Featured. They're creating profiles for essentially all of the people on their workforce, their chief people officer, their chief financial officer, across the spectrum, so that each one of those folks can now comment on an area where they are an expert. And by virtue of their success, the company is getting increased visibility online.
right, smart, right. So not just the founder, but everybody.
Yep.
Well, not everybody, but anybody. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. How do you How do you, or is it just the honor system, or like how do you figure out if somebody's just cranking out AI stuff?
We do AI detection on every single pitch and every single answer that's submitted. So we inked a partnership with a company called Pangram. If you go to pangram.com, it's their headline is AI detection that actually works.
Mm.
For founded by ex Google, Tesla engineers and some smart folks over there that help us detect
Just look
and
for M dashes and that's it. Done.
yeah, done. Solved. Yeah, so that's been critical. And there's two camps in terms of AI. From a journalist perspective, there's the camp that cares and the camp that doesn't. The camp that doesn't care is taking additional steps these days to, basically reach out to the source and get in on a Zoom and talking with them and getting the information. And they don't care if AI was their original connector as long as they're the good source. And then there's a camp that looks at that AI detection score from featured and says, hey, I'm not going to use it. It's 90% AI generated and I'm going to go to 100% human generated.
Right.
So it's
Right.
kind of an interesting time.
I think it's an interesting time too. I notice this is getting a little far afield, but I notice when I get an email now, even from somebody that I know, it's kind of long and it's kind of well written. I start to want like I start to wonder, and and I don't know how I should feel about that, or if I should wonder, But it does feel like different if it was an AI response. I don't know.
I think it all goes back to the importance of human connection and the importance of relationships and the fact that if you get a really well written email in your inbox from someone who you don't know, like it causes you to have some question marks. But if it's a referral email from someone that is like, hey, Scott, meet Brett, you two should really connect. That's kind of like the new currency of this new world that we're kind of living in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, informality is the a litmus test. You got to work in some misspellings. Yeah. Well, what kind of phase are you guys in right now? Is it like you coasting along? Is it crazy time growth? What's happening?
Yeah, I think that we've built up this expert network that's this incredible asset in terms of untapped potential. I think that the collective expertise of everyone on Featured has the ability to do some pretty amazing things that puts us at a company stage that's really unique in the sense that we're very much at zero in the 0 to 1 stage and exploring new ways to utilize and leverage this network. And at the same time, we've, reached 0 to 1 in terms of the expert network that we originally intended to build in terms of connecting experts with the media. So, I think that it's both a realization that the media is in an interesting place and is very much scaling back and redefining itself. And our business is impacted as a result of that.
Mm.
And so you need to be able to keep your head on the swivel and figure out, okay, what do you really have as a company? And where are the emerging markets that you could play?
Yeah. Yeah. So just to feed it back to you. So basically, you've successfully got to one, or like, you've launched, you're successful in this matching, this brokering of expertise and people who need expertise. But it's shifting soil. It's interesting times. And so, but you just pointed out something really interesting that I didn't think about, that basically just a huge database of people who are experts in things is a pretty significant asset uh, that maybe could be used, leveraged in a different way. So I guess
Yeah.
that's what you guys are having, you're dreaming and scheming about.
Yeah, I think that the reality of where things are at in terms of the AI landscape is that the entire internet has been ingested into pre-training data. And now there's a need for more knowledge. And where does that knowledge reside? I think that it's primarily in human experiences that are hard earned. And how do you figure out ways that tap into that knowledge creation aspect? I think that's like the really exciting space for the next 5 years
Mm.
is figuring out, okay, like the internet, every web page has been consumed
Mm.
And now this baseline of knowledge for AI is really incredible, but it doesn't know anything or like everything. How does it get to learn more? And how do humans essentially part ways with their knowledge and create that? So that's kind of like the interesting spot that I think that we're at.
Yeah. Can you talk about some of your ideas, or they
I mean, look, we could waste a bunch of time at the zero stage because what I've learned is 90% of your ideas are totally wrong when you're
totally?
at the zero stage, and
Yeah.
until you get to one and really figured it out with that 10% that actually works, it's probably not worth exploring too much.
Yeah. Well, what's one? Come on, what's one idea that you've had in terms of how to leverage the group of people that you have?
I mean, look, I think that like if you look at traditional needs of experts, one of the weirdest, stupidest, most annoying things that I find in my inbox is getting paid Starbucks gift cards to take a survey. I think
Mm,
that like there's some opportunities to solve that. Like,
mm,
how do you get real-time feedback from folks
mm,
that's not compensated in a Starbucks gift card? So like that would be one really easy one to point to say that industry might be disrupted or changed, in the near future. So I think that like that's one example. I think other examples are, going back to that illustration that AI models can't improve
yeah.
without additional human knowledge. And if you trace the steps back to who's solving those problems today, these are some of the fastest growing businesses in human history.
Mhm.
Because you look at the LLMs and those are the fastest growing businesses in history. And those companies that are attaching themselves to the coattails are also growing at a tremendous clip. So I think that like those are a couple of the spaces that we're looking at.
Yeah, that's an interesting uh, that's an interesting idea. It reminds me a little bit about there's a company that I talked to recently. This guy Jeremy from Pitchfire. It's a company called Pitchfire, and I don't know if you've heard of it or not. But basically, instead of cold emails, I think you can basically get paid to get pitched to, and it's kind of a good idea, right? Because it is taking my time. I am interested in this thing, and somebody would be like, "Yeah, I'll pay you $50 to be able to talk to you for 30 minutes to maybe pitch my thing." That's a good idea. That's a good deal for everybody, actually, instead of just sending thousands and thousands of cold emails that nobody wants to read. And so I don't know that it's exactly what you're describing, but if there was a way for, yeah, you could imagine people being like, "Yeah, I mean, I would love to talk to 10 financial experts about this idea, or even pitch them." I mean, I want to talk to doctors. I have this thing for doctors, and there's a bunch on your program. I don't know if that's exactly what you're talking about, but you can imagine there's some scenarios.
Yeah, a little bit. And I do think that like it's also an interesting time. We came out with this feature called Featured AI. And what it does is it essentially allows you to create a knowledge base with previously created content, whether that's a podcast like this or articles or what have you. And you're able to create that knowledge base and use it as a way to identify media opportunities and draft suggested answers or responses to the media. And so if you look at it like that, there's already these ginormous knowledge bases that exist for a lot of this. If you're sharing on social, if you're crafting a blog, things of that nature,
Mm,
you now have this knowledge base that can be used in really unique ways. So I think that if I think there's an opportunity to centralize a lot of that knowledge and to leverage that so that you're able to drive some passive income for yourself based off of
mm.
previously shared, activities.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think I don't know exactly what the ethics are of this exactly, but you wouldn't have to do it for your own content. Right? It could be any expert actually that's posted 1,000 things. You could collect that in and ask it questions.
I think the moral of this episode here is that the world's evolving very fast,
Yeah.
and here we are at the end of 2025, and at the end of 2027, people might listen to this and be like, "Oh, of course," or
Of course,
"Oh,
or
they were
like,
way
wow.
off."
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So it sounds like you guys are at an interesting, have some successes, and also you're at an interesting inflection point, and like is often the case in the line of work you've chosen, there's lots to figure out.
Yeah, totally. I think that the nature of any evolution of a startup is that you get to a place where you find product market fit, and then the best startups graduate from a .io domain to a .com, and then layer on top of their existing revenue growth to grow exponentially. So, that's the 0 to 1, and then start again and go from 1 to 10 and from 10 to 100.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, there's a lot of highs, a lot of excitement, especially when you have a breakthrough or understand something that you didn't before. And there's also lows. There's also times I think that we all have when we get discouraged. That's always kind of interesting to hear from people. Like, when you get discouraged, Brett, what do you do?
Go on a walk. Just
Go on
one
a
on
walk.
one. Yeah, get away from it all.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I mean, 3 kids at home and employees here at the office. Like, leave the phone on the desk and go be free for like 15 minutes, and it's great.
Yeah. It is actually surprising how effective, like very simple things actually are very, uh, quite effective. You feel like, oh, what am I going to do? I feel so existential, and you go on a walk, you feel like, well, I feel quite a bit better now.
Yeah,
Just,
totally.
yeah. I mean, think of journaling is like this sometimes too. Maybe not for everybody, for a lot of people, like just sitting down and like writing with a pen. For me, often it's like 10 minutes later, I feel quite a bit better. I feel like I got a handle on things now. I don't
Yeah,
know. I guess I'm laughing because I guess it's because I'm laughing at myself in that you kind of can feel like your problems are so fancy, but they're not that fancy. There's the simple kind of ways to self soothe and,
totally.
and move on. Shower does a lot. Although that's more for thinking. Actually, that's more for creativity for me.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
Big fan of showers.
Anything else? Like, um, are there any other strategies you have? The reason I'm asking is because everybody struggles with it, right? It's nice to hear from other people like what they do when their motivation flags a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think that talking with customers and users is always good. As something that you have customers and users.
Hmm.
Fortunately, we do, and so like, yeah, whenever I'm like, man, I don't know what the next step should be, it's going to talk with 20 different customers and sharing what's on your product roadmap and what should and should not be there, and using all of that input to have the best output.
Mm.
That's a great unlock and a great motivator too, because the stuff that you might be like down on might be something that someone's really enjoying, and they're like, man, if you just did this one little tweak to it, this thing could really take off. And you're like, oh, new enthusiasm for this thing that I was down about. Like,
Yeah.
great, thank you for the perspective. So I think that talk with customers is so underrated.
Why do you think that in my observation, people are reluctant, or they just generally don't talk to customers as much as they should? What do you think is the
I
reason?
think they're scared of hearing bad feedback, or scared of
Yeah.
like, oh man, if I email this customer, they might cancel, or they might tell me something. Like, they're fearful of the bad stuff that could happen.
Hmm.
And the fact of the matter is, like, if your email is going to remind them to cancel their subscription, it's already bad.
Yeah.
So, so, so you might as
Get it over
well,
with.
yeah, you might as well listen and learn and try to improve as fast as you can. Well, you've got runway.
Mm.
And I think that, uh, I think that it's just fear for the most part, and the fear of rejection. Oh, what if I email them and they don't want to talk? And for the most part, people are very happy to share their opinions.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's fear. I think it's um I think it's also just franticness, like hassle, busy. Like it's hard to fit in. It's just hard to find the time to have yet another meeting. But I also think, and tell me what you think of this, Brett. I think can be arrogance too, right? Like, well, I know what we need to build. I know what we need to build. I can feel it. I can. It's just logical, and that makes me nervous when I hear that because it's surprising.
Yeah, and like, there's also the fear of, what if I'm wrong? Like, what if I just invested, all this money and all this time into building something that no one wants? And
Mm,
it's easier to bury your head in the sand and pretend like you didn't do that
mm.
than figuring out the answer that, hey, I actually need to pivot because all that money and time that we invested into something that isn't taking off and isn't working, that's a deep fear right there.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah. And maybe even gonna just keep digging. I think underneath that, it's kind of like, am I a real entrepreneur or do I suck at this? Am I really, do I even belong in this job? I'm not sure I am.
This is my fourth company, and I asked that to myself this morning.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go. There you go. What do you think it will take, Brett, for you to say, I am?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Even I have friends who have sold their companies for life-changing sums, and I think that they would still ask themselves that. Was I lucky that point?
Right.
Am I a great entrepreneur, or was I just a product of the times, or was I a product of, so I think that it's natural no matter what success that you have and what failures that you have, you're always going to ask yourself, am I good enough?
Right. Right. Yeah, that's a really good point. That basically you can always, if you're predisposed. I mean, so it's one thing to occasionally have imposter syndrome. I think you're never going to get away from that. But if you have kind of like a quite a strong debilitating tendency that direction, it's not going to go away, no matter what. It's an internal kind of adjustment that needs to take place.
Yeah. So I think that, how do you get back to confidence? It's getting back to your customers. Like,
Yeah.
are you solving problems? And how do you know that? Are you able to qualitatively and quantitatively prove it through customer conversations that you're having, from looking at those little stripe dashboard metrics of seeing
Yeah.
the little green percentage of churn going down,
Mm.
revenue going up. Those are great things to attach yourself to and to monitor. And if you start to see it go down or fluctuate or flatline, and it's getting back to those customer conversations and figuring out what's wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and sometimes I think it's just hearing people say like, "Yeah, I like it. It's working. That's great." And I'm like, well, okay, well, I mean, there's at least a few people who are getting lots of value from this, as is, have built something that is, can kind of pick you up from the very low. Like it's not that bad.
Yeah. And at the same time, it's also not being fearful to ask for money. Like,
Right.
at that point, when you're in a customer conversation, it's a perspective customer conversation. You're just there for feedback, and people are like, man, I would love to use this. It's like, why don't you? Like, here's the checkout link, you know, uh, subscribe today,
Right.
please.
Right. Totally. Oh yeah. That if there's a insecurity or kind of feeling unsure of yourself, that's when it comes up. When the thought comes to your mind, I should send him this link to ask him to pay. Oof, man, that's when the insecurity surfaces, if there is some there.
Totally.
So, in terms of my area of interest, a lot of it is in the area of like balancing the important versus the urgent, both for like individuals and for teams, because turns out humans struggle. Like it's a tough thing to be dialed in on, not just the things that are crying out for urgent attention. How do you, um, your mindset, but also tools or systems that you use, how do you find the right balance between those two things, the important versus the urgent?
Yeah, I think the important and urgent is actually in the Eisenhower matrix.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're familiar with that, so like the Eisenhower matrix, I think in the upper quadrant is like urgent and important. That's like the do it now.
Mm,
Like,
mhm.
don't get caught up in the stuff that's not important. Just do that urgent stuff as soon as you get in front of a computer or whatever it is. And then you've got the important but not urgent, that you've got to schedule that time and block times to make sure that you do it.
Mm,
So, for example, if you're at the zero stage and you need to get to 0 to 1, what's the important stuff that you absolutely need to do for 2 hours, like reaching out to prospective customers or whatever it is, to make sure that you reach out to the prospective customers.
Right.
And then you've got the urgent but not important, which is the delegate portion. So the urgent but not important to you, is there someone on your team that could just do it? And then there's the not important, not urgent stuff that makes up kind of the majority of like days, quite frankly. And
Yeah.
that's the stuff that you just have to ignore and keep it moving.
So yeah, but how do you like take action on that for yourself personally? How do you make that real? Like, do you have a planning period at the beginning of the week, or I don't know, what does it look like?
Well, I definitely will schedule and block calendar blocks to do the important stuff that's not urgent.
Right.
So, you look at my calendar, it's going to have a couple 2 hour blocks to do that stuff. Uh, then it's kind of just like notes, like running a startup it changes so much hour to hour, day to day, that you have to consistently reevaluate things. And a lot of that mental clarity comes from, again, getting away from a computer, getting
Mhm.
out of the sending LinkedIn notes and emails and calls and texts or whatever. It's like usually on a 15-minute walk, I'll recalibrate and be like, what is important? And what am I ignoring right now that actually needs to be done as soon as I get back from this walk?
Mm.
And so there's probably like every 4 hours a reevaluation of what is urgent and important, and doing those time resets to get back and refocus.
Right.
And then if anything enters the day that does seem to be urgent, Slack notes coming through, whatever, it's just delegating that to the right team.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the nice thing about the important and urgent things is we're as humans are very responsive to urgent things, and so that stuff will kind of get you'll kind of calibrate to it naturally, or it's hard to ignore. But the time blocking thing is interesting. I think you're right. For the important but not urgent things, you got to make an appointment. So what's in that quadrant for you right now?
What the important and urgent?
Not urgent.
Not urgent is, yeah, the 0 to 1 stuff of exploring those new opportunities for featured. So a
Mhm.
lot of it's just like, you know, reaching out to prospective customers and trying to find fit. And there's 3 different quadrants of where I think we could find fit, and it's proving which one's excited about what you're doing. So
Right.
yeah, so I think that's where I'm spending my time right now.
Cool. Well, um, I don't know if it'll work, but why don't we do a little bit of promotion for your customer developments right now? Like, what type of people are? If you're listening to this show and you're in these categories, you should reach out to Brett, because he wants to try to talk to you about finding product market fit
Sure.
right now. Like, well, who are those people, Brett?
Our customers are PR agencies, in-house marketing teams, and do-it-yourself small business owners that want to increase their visibility through earned media. So if you're running an agency and you're struggling to find a repeatable way to get your clients featured, featured.com is a great place for you. If
Right.
you're an in-house marketing team that's in charge of getting your executives featured in media, featured is a great place. And then if you're don't want the agency and don't want to pay, a few $1,000 a month, then you could do it yourself and use featured or help a reporter out to do it.
Yeah. Cool. So those are your current customers, but what about people that you want to talk about for like your new ideas, your prospecting, or your customer development for stuff that's not proven yet?
The one of
Same
the
groups, or
one of the tools that I love is Steve Blank's business model canvas.
mm,
And this is a 1-page business plan that has literal post-it notes attached to each quadrant. And the quadrant in the middle is value proposition. What do you think your value prop is? And the second quadrant is customer segments. And product market fit is finding that happy medium of this value proposition is valuable for these customer segments.
right. Mhm.
So, my customer segments are written on post-it notes right now. They're not even worthy enough to talk about because they change frequently. Of like, I thought this was our customer, turns out it is not for these reasons, or this might be our customer, but our value prop is off. So that's what I'm working on right now. Is that Steve Blank business model canvas.
Yeah. You're in a stressful but very exciting time. You've been through it before, so you kind of know and that helps, I think, right? That helps a little bit in the middle when you're in the thick of things and you don't know exactly how it's all going to play out. Well, you've done it before, and so um,
Got it. I
great
mean,
job.
it's always scary in the present, and I don't know if it helps that much to look back and be like, oh man, the Great Recession, like, man, Ford stock was $1, like, unemployment was skyrocketing. I don't know if it helps as much to go through those things and then be in the current situation because life changes. Now I got
Yeah,
3 kids and a minivan and a wife. Like,
yeah,
and
yeah,
at the time with the Great Recession, man, I had me. That was it.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I think that there's just different concerns. And I think the thing that, allows you to persevere, one of my favorite animals, and this is gonna sound super cheesy, but fainting goats are goats that actually faint when they experience fear.
yeah.
So that they get a boost of adrenaline, their legs freeze up, and they'll actually like fall over in some
Yeah, I think
instances.
I've
And
seen videos of them. Yes.
yeah. So the interesting part about this animal though is that the babies don't faint because they haven't learned fear yet. So it's not until you learn fear as an adult that you actually start fainting and start getting paralyzed and stop having inaction. So as an entrepreneur, it's always channeling your baby fainting goat and trying to block out that fear that you know exists,
Yeah,
but mentally you're crazy enough to be like, it doesn't exist.
yeah,
And I'm going to go after what I think is right. And when you do that, you can create some incredible things.
yeah. I like that a lot. It reminds me a little bit of talking to a guy who was an accomplished CTO, and him just reflecting that, man, I used to move so fast. Because I didn't know all of the things that could go wrong. And it was, I mean, it wasn't all kind of like, and that's good that I know all these things now. It was actually kind of a
Personal
detriment.
knowledge.
The curse of knowledge. Exactly. Exactly. But you're right. You kind of, the beginner's mind, it does help just to, yeah, be a baby fainting goat. I got it. I didn't see that anywhere on your website, but maybe I didn't look closely enough at the about page. I'll check it out. See, because it must be on there. You must have a fainting goat video on there somewhere.
Maybe it's just up here, man. I went to a fainting goat farm in somewhere Tennessee, and that's where I had an experience.
An epiphany. Cool. Hey, Brett. I like what you have too. I'm going to check it out and think hopefully other people will too. Maybe I should get some earned media. We'll see. But then also, I'm excited that you're kind of you're riffing and thinking about what's next. Seems like you do have a good foundation with the databases that you've collected already, and I'll be following along to see what comes out of it. What comes out of your post-it notes and which ones line up. And I wish you all the best.
Cool. Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it.
It was a pleasure. Founders, if you're struggling to manage goals and execution with your team, HabitStack can help with that. I'm Scott Ward. Thank you for joining me on the HabitStack podcast.